Being a lawyer was the only thing that I had ever expected myself to do, and my family expected me to, since I was 12. And I did think, oh, what if I go to film school? I could get in the storytelling business, and that sounds good, and I think I could be good at that. But Dad's paying for school, so I got to call Dad. This is not going to go well, I think. So I decide, I plan it out. What's the best time to call him? All right, 7:30 p.m. Tuesday night. He'll be home from work. He'll have had a good dinner. He's having a beer with Mom on the couch. He'll be happy. He'll be open to a new idea. So I call him. Hey, little buddy, what's up? Hey, Pop. I don't want to go to law school. I want to go to film school. Now I'm starting to sweat on the other end of the line, thinking I'm about to hear, you want to do what? You know, I was raised blue collar. You work your way up a ladder, and you're going to be our lawyer. And instead, what I hear is, well, is that what you want to do? I said, yes, sir. Got another 5-second pause. I'm going. And all of a sudden, I hear 3 of the greatest words that have ever been told to me. All right. Don't half-ass it.
What's poppin'? Top 5 regrets of the dying. Let's get into it. Number 1, they wish they hadn't worked so hard. Most of these jobs, although necessary, don't really care about you. And when you die, they'll replace you that day. Number 2, they wish they'd had the courage to express themselves openly, honestly, and truly. Which brings me to 3, they wish they'd had the courage to live the life that they truly wanted to live, make the decisions that they felt called to make. Number 4, they wish they had stayed in touch with their friends more. Number 5, they wish they would have allowed themselves to take more chances. Every day that you wake up is a chance for you to live it differently than you did the day before.
More things I wish I knew in my 20s from someone in his 30s. The thing about comparing social media, personalities, wishing you could be like somebody else, no one will tell you, but that I believe is this. Everything that you like about somebody online, or me, is something that some part of you recognizes as yourself. Invest in that. Cultivate it. It's already there.
Bro, do you think the education system is ever going to teach us financial literacy? No. Why not? Because it goes against the entire business model of what the American dream is. What do you mean? Under the American dream, you're supposed to go to college. That means you're going to take out student loan debt, which means you have to pay interest to the banks. Okay? With that education, you will become an employee, which means you will pay the highest taxes of anybody else in society. Okay? And then you are taught that a house is your greatest asset, so you will take out a mortgage and pay interest to the banks once again on another loan. Okay? And then you are taught to consume, so you will take out credit card debt to pay for stuff to impress people that don't give a shit. Okay? So all in all, you will become a cash flowing asset for the banks and the government. So why would I ever educate you on the money system if I can turn you into a cash flowing asset for me? I don't know. The tax code is just that, a code. And only the people that are willing to do the work to crack it will reap the benefits.
Who came up with the days of the week and why do we just follow?
Okay, you're mad about it now, but you're going to be more mad about it when I'm done, because most languages do this fairly effectively. They name the days of the week after the planets, which are named after God. So all of our days in most languages are named after gods of the Romans. You've got Saturn, Saturday, right? And in Romance languages like Spanish, this holds. You've got Martes for Mars, you got Viernes for Venus. In Germanic languages, like English, you've got Sunday for the sun, Monday for the moon, Saturday for Saturn, and then gods from everywhere! Thursday is Thursday, the Norse god. Wednesday is Woden's Day, the Germanic god. Friday is the day of the Anglo-Saxon goddess Frigg, which is an equivalent to Venus. And Tuesday is, again, another Norse god. This one is the one-handed god of single combat. Well, I guess don't fuck around too much with Tuesdays. Oh my god, why do we make it so messy?
Well, if that last video made you mad, wait till you hear this. It's really going to piss you off. You know how I know the tax code is written by millionaires and billionaires? Because they don't give a damn about you. So if you've ever had a job, you know that you get Social Security or FICA taxes removed, right? It's right there on your paycheck. Okay, we've got some numbers coming. Bear with me. Don't zone out. The Social Security tax rate is 6.2%. So if you make $100,000 a year, you're going to pay $6,200 in Social Security taxes. Makes sense, right? So if you made $1 million in a year, you would expect to pay how much in Social Security taxes? $62,000 or 6.2%, right? That's not how it works. Because none of the income you make after $137,000 is subject to Social Security tax. So that guy who made $1 million in the year, he pays 85.37 in Social Security taxes, or about 0.08% of his income. How's that fair?
When someone's criticizing themselves, there's some things you want to avoid. Like, avoid rationalizing them out of it, because what that does is it puts you as opponents, and the person's forced to kind of defend the reasons they're insufficient. So that doesn't work. Also avoid encouraging them too much, and this might sound weird, but what happens is people start to self-deprecate in order to get compliments, and like the self-criticism actually escalates and gets higher because they want that comfort, and so they have to find comfort in different ways. So maybe instead try being honest with how you feel. Like, maybe it's making you angry, and so say that. Say like, you know, I feel kind of upset and angry when you say those things about yourself because I love you, and I don't like people harassing my friends, and even if it's you. And that might sound kind of harsh, but that's not shaming them. That's being honest. That might be what they need to hear.
Based on certain things I post, I get a lot of people asking me what I think the future is going to look like. Politics in America has basically been reduced to a team sport. You pick which side you're on, you scream at each other, you get really angry about Mr. or Mrs. Potato Head's pronouns, but there's no actual push for material change coming from either side, honestly. So what are we looking at? I think you should just read Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash. Techno-feudalism, baby. Nation states will continue to exist, at least nominally, but the true power is going to be held by corporations. And I would wager that down the road, you'll essentially have citizenship in some capacity to those corporations. You can pick which one you belong to. Get your Amazon bucks or your Facebook bucks or your Apple bucks. If you live in a company town, shop at the company store. Things are already trending in this direction anyway. But at this point, if you look at, say, the ice storms in Texas recently, like, what is government actually doing anymore? Nothing, really. Republican legislators just let the state fall on its face, letting people deal with $12,000 electrical bills. What did Joe Biden do? Absolutely nothing. So yeah, techno-feudalism in the LA sunshine.
Some of y'all really out here self-diagnosing yourselves with depression. Why not just self-diagnose yourself with happiness? I don't know.
Okay, crazy concept. No one goes for a low five with a low five. Give me a high five. Okay, give me a low five. Right, she went for the low five with the high five, but watch a low five with a low five. Give it.
What's a random historical domino effect you absolutely love?
How 10-year-olds talking about toys led to the creation of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So in the late 90s, the comic business was falling apart and Marvel was millions in debt. So they had an idea. They said, let's make our own movies and use that to sell toys. But the problem was, they'd already sold away the film rights to their most popular characters. Sony had Spider-Man, Fox had Fantastic Four, X-Men, and so on. Now, they did have the rights to Iron Man, Thor, Hawkeye, and so on, but remember, in the early 2000s, these were not household names. I mean, they were a big deal to comic fans, but general audiences, the people who buy tickets and toys, barely knew who they were. So Marvel did some research. They got together some kids, showed them pictures of these heroes, and asked, which one looks like it'd be the coolest action figure? And the kids, of course, picked Iron Man because he looked cool and techy. So Marvel went ahead and made the first Iron Man movie as cheaply as they could, hiring a small director and a washed-up actor to sell as many toys as possible. And, you know, they actually didn't sell that many action figures at first, but the movie was amazing and made almost $600 million. So they made more.
Guys don't get this. You can invite a girl out and think it's casual, but she didn't think that. She was at home. She spent 2 hours getting ready. She showered, shaved her legs, moisturized her entire body, made sure her hair was amazing, so she spent an hour on it, made sure her makeup was nice, had to make sure that she had the perfect outfit. She even thought that she had to go to the mall to get a specific shirt just because she wanted to look good for you. Got fully ready, asked 4 of her friends for their opinions on her outfit and her look, got her Uber, called her best friend the entire way, telling her best friend how nervous she was to see you, and then she showed up and saw you. And you know the shitty part about this story is, you didn't even know what she was going through before she came to you. You don't know all the energy she put into seeing you. Because to you, it was just casual. And to her, it wasn't.
I just did a video on Bucky Fuller, but I wanted to make sure that everyone heard this quote that I heard from him. It was my first introduction to who he really was. We should do away with the absolutely specious notion that everyone has to earn a living. It is a fact today that 1 in 10,000 of us can make a technological breakthrough capable of supporting all the rest. The youth of today are absolutely right in recognizing this nonsense of earning a living. We keep inventing jobs because of this false idea that everybody has to be employed at some kind of drudgery because according to Malthusian Darwinian theory, he must justify his right to exist. So we have inspectors of inspectors and people making instruments for inspectors to inspect inspectors. The true business of people should be to go back to school and think about whatever it was they were thinking about before somebody came along and told them they had to earn a living. He was convinced that the accumulation of relevant knowledge combined with the quantities of major recyclable resources that had already been extracted from the earth had attained a critical level. It made it so competition necessities had become unnecessary. Cooperation was the optimum survival strategy, and war is obsolete.
I took 11 years to finish college, 5 schools, 6 attempts. When I told that story, someone left this response. First, I've never heard that idiom. I love it. Second, fuck yes I do. I got quit coming out of my ears. If I didn't make a habit of quitting things, I'd fall prey to the sunk cost fallacy. A sunk cost is any expense, money, time, energy, whatever, that you've already made. A sunk cost fallacy is when you let that past expense affect future decisions. It shouldn't, but our psyches feel the opposite. Here's a tough but common example. Staying in a failing relationship because you've already put in X number of years does not make sense. Now, I've been married 17 years, and I hope to triple that or so. But not because I've already put in 2 decades. It's because I like my wife now, and I foresee a positive future. You start making decisions like that, yes, you'll quit a lot of things. You put books down after a chapter, you turn off movies in the middle, you drop out of school, and yeah, you sometimes break up. Should you? I don't know. But I do know the investment you've already made in anything from a book to a marriage has no real bearing on whether to continue. Learn more in my favorite book, Wikipedia. And come along if you want, we'll keep talking.
Hey, what's a random fact that only you know because of your weird specific job?
The reason banks are so rich is because they make their money off of us. So when we open up a checking or savings account and we get maybe 1% interest annually if we're lucky, they're taking our money and investing it for way higher return. So they get rich on our backs while they pay us a fraction of what they're making off of us. And then in 2020, Congress passed a law that now permits banks to invest our money in what's called venture capital. Venture capital is a sector that invests in tech startups, and it's notoriously racist and misogynistic. So banks can take our money invested in notoriously racist and misogynistic asset classes and get even richer. Thankfully, there's a way to make a lot more interest than what a bank would pay you without having to deal with a bank at all. It's called DeFi, or decentralized finance, and it's built on top of the technology behind the Ethereum crypto network. So Bitcoin's the #1 cryptocurrency. Ether's the #2 cryptocurrency by market cap. DeFi sits on top of Ether. With Ether, we can be a bank for one another and get paid for doing it.
I want to emphasize that you have to be happy within the circle of limitations that you set up for yourself. Maybe not content, but you have to set it up in such a way that you enjoy it. And I say that the results are beyond what you can imagine because if you aren't currently doing this, if you're currently feeling limited by the world around you and you're living in a state of restriction and worry, you literally can't imagine your best life. Your brain's not capable of it. And it's not because you're stupid, it's because you're brilliant. You're living in a life where your options are limited and you don't have control over them. So your brain, the magical machine that it is living up to that reality. It's not thinking of all the cool shit you could do because your brain knows it's not an option. But if you shift reality and choose to limit yourself so that instead of chasing options and taking everything you can until you hit a wall, you're actually deciding not to take certain options, now you're living in a world of abundance where you have the ability to decide what happens next. And once your mind realizes that you get to decide what happens next, it will start to come up with better ideas. Because now you're a god.
The hero is the person who confronts horrible, chaotic potential and tames it and makes something of it, right? That's the fundamental human story. But the problem is that you have to face what you don't want to face in order to fix it.
Yeah.
And so you look at all the things about yourself that need to be burned off, that need to be dispensed with. And that, man, especially at the beginning, especially if you're screwed up, that may be like 95% of you just has to go up in flames. And it's painful. Even some of that stuff that you have to burn off doesn't want to die, and it'll scream in agony while you're burning it off. It's not pleasant. But if you know that you're the thing that can transcend your problems, most fundamentally, if you know you're the thing that, if it faces the problems, can transcend them, then you have the faith that would enable you to take stock of who you are.
In 5 seconds, I'm going to put a picture up here that will never leave your mind and will forever change the way you see things. These are averages, but this describes where you are most likely to end up financially. It is getting more and more unlikely for the younger generations to have any sort of meaningful wealth in this country. So these assholes in the baby boomer generation, they could be completely mediocre and get fucking loaded by today's standards. Generation X, millennials, and Gen Z, sorry, you're even less than that. You have to bust your ass, be completely perfect, have an incredible idea, and get extremely lucky at the end of all that. So no, it's not impossible. Don't give up on your dreams. But holy cow, Generation X had half of what the baby boomers had at the same age. Millennials are on track to have almost none of that. Gen Z?
I hate that there are all these secret tips and tricks and stuff that you need to know in order to be an adult and in order to do adult things. Like, you'll go to buy a car and people will be like, oh, okay, but here are like tips for like negotiating and stuff, and like here are like the magic phrases you need to say so that like the car dealership doesn't like scam you and like give you a bad deal. And I'm like, why are they trying to scam me? Like, why do I have to be so scared of just buying a car or like dealing with insurance companies? Like, my sister the other day was telling me, she was like, call the insurance company about your bill. Tell them that you literally like can't afford to pay it and they will cover more of it. And I'm like, why are they not already covering more of it if they can afford to cover more of it? Like, or buying an apartment or anything. Like, everybody, apparently when you're an adult, everybody is trying to scam you, and everything is just about like trying not to get scammed.
The lie you've been told your entire life, part 2. So, even though you might lose money having a home and a mortgage for 40 years, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Because while the average situation of a home and a 40-year mortgage results in a $40,000 loss, renting for 40 years results in a $300,000 loss. Your average home does not make you money, but it is a way to save money.
So when you get a book that's banned, that means there's something in there that you need to know. So this book is called History of Central Banking. What does Hitler, JFK, Lincoln, Gaddafi, Napoleon, Julius Caesar, Tsar Nicholas II have in common? They all tried to do state banking and they all got either killed or thrown into a war.
A Harvard professor once told me about a young boy who came into the burn unit who'd been burned over a large percentage of his body, had a pretty low chance of survival. As the weeks dragged on, he became gradually worse, and basically they realized he had to have a skin graft. They couldn't find a proper match for a skin graft. His father, who was there every day in anguish, asked and begged if they would take his skin to a skin graft. So he did the graft. Unfortunately, the father died of complications. I'm not sure if he got infected or if he just died from the surgery, but he died during the skin graft. The child, after a period of time, woke up, and the doctors were there, and he said, what's wrong with my dad? And they didn't want to, disturb him, so they said, oh, your dad's fine. And the son said, well, then why is he standing at the foot of my bed and he's not saying anything? And that was a very interesting story.
I want to share with you guys this quote from Bruce Lee that I personally find very eye-opening. You will continue to suffer if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. True power is sitting back and observing everything with logic. If words control you, that means everyone else can control you. Breathe and allow things to pass. How many times have you allowed other people's words and opinions affect the way you feel? My answer would be many, many times. And I'm sure I'm not alone in this, which is why I think it's important for us to know that if we do have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to us, we will always, always suffer.